Imagine driving down a familiar road at night, and suddenly you are plunged into a cloud so thick that you can't even see the hood of your own car.
Yeah, that is a terrifying feeling. In an instant, you aren't just blind, right? Your brain's entire map of reality just completely collapses.
Exactly. You lose your sense of speed, your sense of direction, and honestly, eventually your sense of what is actually real. Welcome to the deep dive.
We have a really fascinating one for you today.
We really do. Today we are exploring a source, and it features 3 allegedly true, highly unsettling accounts that all revolve around a single meteorological phenomenon.
Dense fog.
Yeah, dense fog. But our mission today goes way beyond just, recounting spooky campfire tales.
Right, we are going to use these accounts as case studies. We want to analyze exactly how fog just completely unravels human perception.
What the underlying science of it.
Exactly. The psychology of sensory deprivation, the limits of human biology, and really what happens when our absolute reliance on our senses is just stripped away.
Because by the end of this deep dive, you might seriously rethink ever navigating through low visibility again. I mean, in all 3 of these stories, the people involved didn't just experience visual hallucinations.
No, they encountered physical evidence. Evidence left behind in the real world that defies logical and, sometimes even physical explanation.
Yeah, so let's get right into it.
Let's start with the first account, which is just a perfect demonstration of how quickly our spatial awareness, and really our cognitive safety nets, can just collapse. We are looking at a late-night solitary drive in 2022.
Right, so the driver is heading from Oakland up to Eureka in Northern California. They are on Highway 101. And if you haven't driven specifically around the Trinidad area, it's this really narrow 2-lane stretch of rural highway.
Very isolated.
Super isolated, barely any lights, no cell service, and you've got these dense redwood forests just pressing in on both sides of the road.
And out of nowhere, this massive fog bank rolls in. It drops visibility to barely 20 feet.
So the driver does the smart thing, right? They slow down to about 35 miles an hour. But as they are creeping through the gloom, they pass a static, unmoving figure standing on the right shoulder of the road.
And the crucial detail to note here is the behavior of that figure, because it isn't waving for help.
Right, it's not like they're looking down at a glowing phone screen or anything.
Exactly, it is just facing the road, completely motionless.
Which is creepy, sure, but your brain immediately tries to rationalize it. Like, you tell yourself, oh, it's just someone waiting for a tow truck,
You have to tell yourself something to stay calm.
Right, but then 10 minutes later, the driver passes the exact same figure. I mean, same height, same dark clothes, same bizarre stance, except this time, the figure is on the left shoulder.
Yeah.
And as the car passes, the figure actually snaps its head to make direct eye contact with the driver.
Which is where the psychological terror actually begins. Because in situations of extreme sensory deprivation like driving in thick fog, the human brain experiences something called pareidolia.
Pareidolia. Right, we've talked about that before.
Yeah, your visual cortex is starved for input.
Yeah.
So it aggressively tries to find familiar patterns like human shapes in the visual static of the fog. It's basically a survival mechanism.
Okay, but a hallucination born of pareidolia is passive, right?
Exactly. When the figure snaps its head to make eye contact, well, now the environment is actively reacting to the driver. So that pareidolia theory just completely falls apart.
And it gets so much worse. 3 minutes after that eye contact, a hooded figure is standing dead center, just blocking the middle of the road.
So the driver is forced to stop.
Completely stop. And when they check the rearview mirror, someone is creeping up right behind their car. They are completely boxed in by these figures.
Just a total nightmare scenario.
Yeah, so panicking, the driver throws the car into drive, swerves aggressively to escape, and is suddenly and violently hit from behind. They hear this loud, awful crunching sound of metal on metal.
A physical, undeniable impact.
A massive physical impact, yeah. So the driver checks the mirror to see what plowed into them. And there is absolutely no car behind them.
Nothing but swirling fog?
Nothing. So they speed off, and for the next 4 hours of the drive home, they literally convince themselves it was just a fatigue-induced hallucination, like a massive panic attack.
Right, until they get home.
Until they pull into their driveway, walk to the back of the car, and find the rear bumper completely destroyed by a massive dent. But here's the kicker. There is absolutely zero paint transfer.
Wow. And that missing paint transfer is really the anchor point of this entire account, because it forces us to look at cognitive dissonance.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I want to look at the physics of that for a second. Driving in fog that thick is essentially like driving inside a sensory deprivation tank.
Oh, absolutely. You lose all your peripheral markers.
Right. But I have to push back a little on the, supernatural element here, because let's be real, the driver is terrified. Adrenaline is absolutely flooding their system, and they are wildly throwing the car from brake to drive.
Very true.
So isn't it incredibly likely that they simply backed into a metal guardrail or a heavy mile marker in the fog without even realizing it? I mean, metal on metal makes a loud crunch.
What's fascinating here is that it's a completely logical assumption. But let's apply the actual physics of a car crash to that theory.
Okay, let's do it.
If you hit a painted metal guardrail or a road sign hard enough to utterly destroy a modern reinforced bumper, there is going to be violent friction.
Right, you'd scrape the paint.
You will see paint transfer from the object, or at the very least, you'd see deep, jagged, localized scraping right into the plastic of the bumper. But the driver specifically noted a massive dent with zero paint transfer.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, a guardrail simply does not do that. It leaves a very specific forensic signature.
Wait, I see the contradiction now. That is wild. The driver is totally willing to accept that they hallucinated terrified figures on the road. They are completely ignoring the basic physics of a car crash just to protect their sanity.
Exactly. They are trying to force a rational explanation like, oh, I must have hit a post, onto an event that physically rejects it.
Yeah, they're choosing the lesser of two impossible realities. Because a mental breakdown is somehow a safer, more comforting conclusion for this driver than accepting that something invisible, with enough blunt force to cave in a bumper, just attacked their car.
And fog creates a space where you can no longer trust your visual conclusions, right? But it also creates a space where velocitization occurs.
Velocitization? What is that?
It's a phenomenon with a lack of peripheral visual markers makes your brain think you are moving much slower than you actually are.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it causes catastrophic misjudgments in speed and distance. It's almost like trying to keep your balance on a boat when you can't see the horizon.
Because your inner ear feels the movement, but your eyes are reporting stillness.
Precisely. The brain can't reconcile those two inputs, so the system just crashes. The driver was already biologically compromised before those figures even appeared.
You know, it's one thing when our biology fails us, like on that highway. But I feel like the real panic sets in when we turn to the objective tools we built to save us, like GPS, and find out the fog has broken those two.
Oh, definitely.
Let's look at what happens to the logic of distance in our second source.
Yeah, because this moves us from a failure of spatial awareness into just a complete breakdown of temporal and technological reality.
This is the jogger story. So we have a college senior, they're home for spring break in a very mundane suburban town, and they decide to go for a run on a 3-mile wooded loop that they have literally run hundreds of times since high school.
They know it like the back of their hand.
Exactly. They know every route, every turn. But the fog on this particular day is uniquely thick. The runner actually describes it as an ambient video game haze, or like one of those lo-fi study videos where the world just sort of dissolves 30 feet out in every direction.
It's a very isolating atmosphere. But it's one they feel confident navigating because of repetition and muscle memory. The brain relies heavily on proprioception, which is the unconscious awareness of movement and spatial orientation.
Right, and they have their Garmin GPS watch on to track their pace. But deep in the woods, the logic of distance just completely breaks down.
How so?
Well, the runner's watch hits 2.5 miles, but instead of approaching the familiar exit of the woods where the trail ends, they are still surrounded by deep trees.
That is deeply unsettling.
Yeah. And at 3 miles, which is the known length of the entire loop, they stop running. But the GPS watch just keeps ticking up. 3.1 miles, 3.2, and they're standing completely still.
Wow. Think about the GPS watch or phone on your own body right now. We treat these devices as, infallible anchors to reality.
Oh, absolutely.
When that screen says you've moved 3 miles, you believe it more than your own tired legs. So when the watch ticks up while you're standing still, the fog isn't just obscuring the trees anymore. It really feels like it's obscuring the fundamental rules of physics.
Yeah, so the runner panics, decides to turn around and just sprint back the exact way they came. But as they do, they hear something pursuing them.
The sound from the source material.
Yeah, the source material describes it as a human siren. It's this continuous fluctuating drone or moan that swells and dips in volume. Like, it does not sound like a call for help. It's this unearthly, relentless noise.
Right behind them.
Right behind them. The jogger runs faster, but this thing just stays right behind them, completely hidden in the fog. After running over 4 miles total, like nearly throwing up from exhaustion, they finally burst out of the woods.
And they look back.
They look back into the fog, and there is a 7-foot-tall, dark mass gently swaying in the middle of the trail, just watching them.
A dark mass that conspicuously never steps out of the fog line.
Never steps out. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. The parents in the source material rationalized this entire ordeal by saying it was probably just a tall guy from town pulling an elaborate prank. Just a local messing with a runner.
It's the only rational explanation they can reach for.
Right, but I have to challenge you on this, because people do insane things for pranks, right? Adrenaline pushes people past normal physical limits all the time. Couldn't a dedicated local track star with a sick sense of humor totally pull this off?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to look at the actual biomechanics of running a 4-mile pace to see why that prank theory falls apart structurally.
Okay.
We have to consider human physiology here, specifically VO2 max and lung capacity.
Okay, take me through the biology of that.
Well, a human prankster would have to silently match the pace of an incredibly fit college athlete who is sprinting in pure terror.
Right.
Sprinting requires massive rapid oxygen intake. You have to aggressively inhale to feed your muscles. But to create the sound of a human siren, like a loud, continuous, fluctuating droning sound, you have to constantly forcefully exhale.
Oh, wow. Okay, that makes total sense. You can't violently inhale for a sprint and continuously exhale for a siren at the exact same time?
It is biologically incompatible. The lung capacity required to run a 4-mile pace while acting as a continuous siren without taking obvious, loud, gasping breaths. It simply doesn't exist in human beings.
That is terrifying when you put it like that.
Not to mention, someone who is 7 feet tall would be weaving through a dense, uneven forest trail they can't clearly see, matching a runner's pace perfectly without snapping branches or tripping.
Right. No sound of footsteps or brush breaking.
Exactly. The physical evidence of the audio exertion proves it wasn't just a local guy playing a joke.
It's like running on a treadmill where the scenery never changes, but your body is still feeling the very real physical exhaustion of the miles. The trail literally stretch.
Yeah.
When visual anchors are removed, the brain's proprioception goes haywire, but the GPS watch failing points to an environmental anomaly, not just a biological one.
And solitary experiences like the driver and the jogger are terrifying, but an observer can still try to argue fatigue or isolation or a severe panic attack to explain them away.
Exactly, which brings us to the final account, because what happens when two seasoned outdoorsmen experience an impossible timeline together?
That changes everything.
It really does. A shared reality completely removes that exhausted hallucination excuse. It eliminates what psychologists call folie à deux, or a shared delusion, because the physical elements they interact with are confirmed by the environment itself.
Let's head to Willapa Bay in Washington for this one. It's a massive, complex tidal estuary.
Yeah, so this happened about 6 years ago. On a crisp September morning, we are following two very experienced kayakers, the narrator, and his buddy Edwin, who is literally a former kayaking guide.
They know what they're doing.
Totally. So they launch their kayaks, and a thick morning fog rolls in, dropping visibility to about 40 feet over the water.
And we really need to establish their baseline competency here. They aren't amateurs who just got lost. They have compasses, they understand tidal charts, and crucially, they understand how sound propagates over open water.
Yeah. Right. So they are paddling along, and through the dense fog, they hear a steady splashing about 100 feet away. But they both instantly realize it's not a paddle.
No.
It's the distinct, heavy sound of oars, like from an old-school rowboat.
And the mechanics of rowing versus paddling create entirely different acoustic signatures. Oars have this heavy, rhythmic thud against the wooden oarlocks, followed by a deeper water displacement.
You can't mistake it for a kayak.
No, you can't. And in dense fog, sound acts very strangely. Temperature inversions, where cold air is trapped near the water by warmer air above, can actually refract sound waves downward, making distant noises sound incredibly close and clear.
Well, for 20 solid minutes, this rowing rhythm never changes. It never speeds up, it never slows down. It perfectly matches the kayaker's pace, never getting closer or further away.
And whoever is rowing entirely ignores them when they shout out to say hello.
Completely ignores them. Then the fog shifts for just a moment. They get a 3-second glimpse of a dark wooden rowboat through the haze. No discernible features, just the boat.
And it terrifies them.
On such a primal level, they blindly make a complete beeline for the shore, like full panic mode. They hit knee-deep water, jump out of their kayaks, and just try to catch their breath.
And this is the moment the physical evidence really shatters their understanding of the natural world.
Yeah, because they look down at their exact random landing spot. And there, pressed into the sand, are fresh, wet, barefoot footprints.
But the direction of them.
Right. The footprints are coming out to you of the water, walking up the beach, turning and heading deep into the tree line. Terrified, they trace these wet footprints backward down the shoreline for 50 yards, and sitting right there, pulled up onto the sand, is the exact same dark wooden rowboat they just saw out in the deep water.
The same boat, with the heavy oars still resting inside the locks.
So what does this all mean? Let me play devil's advocate for a second and challenge the mechanics of this.
Yeah.
We are in a tidal estuary, which means shifting, powerful currents.
Very powerful.
Let's say there's a fast rip current or a tidal push. Is it at all possible that the water currents just caught an abandoned rowboat, carried it silently through the fog, and beached it on the shore way faster than the kayaks could paddle?
This raises an important question. But let's break down the absolute failure of marine physics and geometry in that scenario.
Okay.
First, we have to look at hull design. A heavy, dark wooden rowboat is a displacement hull. It pushes water out of its way. It is inherently a much slower vessel than two sleek kayaks, which are designed to cut through the water with minimal drag.
So even if they were both paddling at max speed, the kayak should easily outrun a heavy wooden rowboat.
By a massive margin, especially with two experienced outdoorsmen aggressively paddling in pure terror. For the rowboat to get to the shore first, it would have to defy the basic physics of drag and propulsion.
Wow.
Let's pretend a miraculous water current did shoot this rowboat to the beach like a torpedo. Look at the geometry of the human action required to create those footprints.
Walk me through the timeline of that.
Well, the phantom rower would have had to outpace the fleeing, panicked kayakers to the land. They would have to beach the boat. Then they would have to get out barefoot, walk 50 yards down the beach to the exact random coordinate the kayakers were eventually going to land at.
Oh my God.
Yeah, walk out of the water at that specific spot and then vanish into the trees. And they would have had to complete this entire sequence of events all before the fast-moving kayaks even hit the shallows.
The kayakers didn't even pick a designated landing spot on a map, you know? They just fled blindly toward land to escape. How could the footprints be waiting for them at the exact coordinate they blindly arrived at?
Impossible.
It implies that whatever was in that boat knew exactly where they were going to land before they even made the decision to turn.
It suggests a manipulation of time, space, and intent that goes far beyond just a tricky water current. These environments systematically strip away human agency. Think about the through line here.
Right, the connections between the three.
The kayakers, the joggers, the driver, they all entered the fog, assuming they were in control of their reality. They had their maps, their Garmin watches, their compasses, their years of experience. But the fog neutralized absolutely all of it.
It really forces you, listening right now, to examine your absolute reliance on visual data. I mean, we build our entire lives around the assumption that if we can see a thing, it's real, and if we can't see it, it's not there.
Yeah.
When a dense fog takes our sight away, we realize how fragile our grip on reality, time, and safety actually is. It's a profound lesson in cognitive vulnerability. When we are deprived of our familiar landmarks, our brains desperately try to fill in the gaps.
But what makes these three specific sources so compelling is that what fills the gaps isn't just human imagination or a psychological misfire. The horror is anchored in the physical world.
Right. Ticking watches defying location, wet footprints predicting a landing spot, destroyed bumpers with no paint transfer.
The physical evidence is the part you can't just wave away as a trick of the light or a symptom of velocitization.
Which leaves us with a final thought to chew on today. Something to really think about the next time the weather turns gray, you're driving down the highway, and the horizon just disappears. We always assume fog is just a mundane weather condition, right?
Yeah, just moisture trapped in the air, temporarily obscuring our normal, everyday world. We view it simply as a temporary lack of visibility.
but based on impossible massive dents, and a GPS watch ticking up while you stand completely still, and fresh, wet footprints waiting for you on a blind beach. What if fog doesn't just hide our world? What if it acts as a temporary curtain, dropping down and allowing something else entirely to cross over into ours? And suddenly, that mental map we rely on isn't just broken. It belongs to someone or something else.